Everybody, welcome. Day 10
10
to the
already.
Great Reset. This is an awesome lesson today. And I think a lot of people have no idea how their cells communicate with each other and how neurotransmitters work. So Lau is going to give us a basic biology lesson and kind of talk about mainstream what we understand. And then I can come in at the end and talk a little bit about the fascia.
And why it's so important. Of course, just pretty simple. The highways of communication in our body are the nerves. It's what moves information from the brain to the rest of your body, or from what your senses are receiving to the main centers for processing that information. The nerves are this type of highways, but one nerve cell and another nerve cell, they never really get to touch. They're just really close to each other. And what happens is that in that gap, you have neurotransmitters, or let's say certain molecules that help them communicate. So if one wants to communicate with the other, this is the way they do it. They don't touch. They're not in this way. So what happens is that these molecules they're extremely important for efficient communication, but they also play a role in sickness. So in order for us to have full functional body where all the communication is happening, and you know how important communication is, because if you cannot really transmit a message, think about when you're talking to somebody, there's no communication, we
Or
don't
me
understand.
talking to someone in Spanish.
Exactly. So you miss the message and the body doesn't understand, and it enters in a state of confusion. So this is the same. We have to make sure that this communication is actually happening.
Same thing, cell to cell communication.
Cell to cell communication is also the same. Normally, what we do is, or what the body does, is through neurotransmitters or molecules or cytokines. I don't know if that's the correct name in English, but it's cytokinas in Spanish, and thousands of different molecules of communication. And you have to consider that, again, in order for us to be healthy, the communication lines have to be open.
For a healthy relationship, keep those lines of communication
Yourself to
open.
yourself. No, it's really true. And I've noticed in the last like 2 years, all of a sudden people are talking about neuroplasticity or just plasticity, muscle plasticity. I have to just like a referee on the sideline be like, Fascia, when we're talking about, if we look at the way cells and neurons are organized, they don't just go through blank space. They go through fascia. And just reviewing a little bit, if you haven't read my blogs on ashleyblackduber.com, the what is fascia 1 through 4, it has great visuals. I feel like people can really wrap their brain around it, because all of our cells, including our brain cells, and especially our brain cells, because there's 3 thick layers of fascia. That's your dura, your apia, your arachnoid. What I've figured out, when someone didn't know what it was, they just said, oh, it looks like spider web. Let's call it arachnoid matter, even white matter. It is not blank. It's not air. It's not space. It's all some form of fascia, whether that's thick structural fascia, the more sort of pliable liquid, or full on what people are calling liquid plasma. It's really a combination of the gelatinous fascia and blood, right? So if you have that understanding that all of these things, if you think of it like your cells, including the neurons, are cars, then your fascia is the freeway. And if the freeway is jammed or skinny or obstructed, the cars cannot get through, right? So I just feel like when we start talking about creating new neuropathways of our thoughts, or new neuropathways for our hip to function better, or new pathways to deliver nutrition to our cells at a very, very fundamental level, we need to start talking about full body fascial plasticity, because that is where proper communication can occur. So of course it breaks my heart when somebody's like, oh, I'm going to go off on my cellulite dent, or I'm going to work on my elbow. And it's like, that's great. But for me, it feels like you're missing this big picture, which is why this challenge this year, we are all about doing the full body blasting, because it is a system, one big system, one continuous piece. And if we do full body blasting, it doesn't even have to be hard. It's not even about breaking up adhesions. It's about signaling to have plasticity. We need to blast. We need to keep our fascia healthy. We need to keep our cells healthy. One other little tiny thing, I'm just going to throw in my own scientific theorem into this. You know, when we look at a cell, we talk about it, we call it a cell membrane. What do you think a membrane is? Membrane is fascia. We talk about like when it is distorted, that it has all these little fingerlings that shoot off from it. That's fascia. And then I would also argue that microfilaments that go in and out of the cells are just another form of fascia. Like I call it fascia inside of fascia inside of fascia, taking information, nutrition, communication, whatever, into the cell and then out of the cell. And I think this is going to come out in science in the years to come. And we're going to understand that a little palpation of that fascia system goes a very long way.
There you go. Get your blast in day 10. We'll see you tomorrow. Day 11.
Blast for plasticity.
There we go. Day 11
Day 11.
is structured water.
Structured water.
Oh, I love structured water. I've got my Kangen unit now. I just invested in it. So I'm excited to talk on day 11 about what we can accomplish with the water that we drink. So we'll see you guys back then.
See you tomorrow.